Bam! There it is. There it is. We are streaming. We are streaming. Hi there, I'm Jason Brenizer. I'm going to get right into the PFP, the Phenomenal Future Project podcast program, possibility. I'm so happy that you, whoever you are out there, are watching this right now. You know, today's topic, I'm going to jump right into some questions that I've been getting from people who are maybe a little bit skeptical about jumping into the world of NFTs. I've got a lot of questions coming in, so some of these podcasts or videos that I'm doing, I'm going to be answering those questions, okay? And the first one here today is, what if a good person trades an NFT or sells an NFT to a person I don't really want in my tribe? Okay, so the whole idea here is that I talk about people. You are trying to attract the kinds of fans that you love, that you want to hang out with, that you want them to have a beautiful time with the experiences that you're creating as art. And let's say you're a musician, it's like, you know, if you want to attract people who are in their 30s and really, you know, just dig your jazz, well, that's a different demographic than 13-year-old girls who can't go to the jazz club because obviously they're underage, right? So you may be attracting 13-year-old girls with the music you create, but that's not who you want. Okay, stupid example, but you kind of get the idea here, right? So if the whole idea is you're trying to cultivate this beautiful relationship with your tribe, you know, with your raving fans, what happens if someone else comes along and ruins the party? Okay, and it's a good question. It is a really good question. I'm gonna flip that question around a little bit, or flip the scenario around. So, if NFTs might give somebody a VIP access to an experience that you've created, right? I mean, if they're paying $1,000 and your normal ticket to your show is you know $125, well, they should be getting something above and beyond for paying for that kind of experience that comes along with the NFT you've created. So if we flip this around, well, what was that VIP experience potentially like in a pre-NFT world? Okay, so I'd say this: unless you're selling a high-ticket item where you need to apply or qualify, anyone can buy what you're selling, right? So I think a good example of a high-ticket item would be buying a house, right? You can't just, you know, you can put an offer in on a house, but those people on the other side are going to want to go, oh, well, I don't want to accept this contract if I don't know they can actually buy the house. Do they have enough money? Do they have enough down payment? Do they qualify to get a loan from a bank? Do they have W-2 income? Do they have, you know, there are all of these things that where you would actually have to qualify. Okay, same thing with a car. You know, you kind of have to prove that you can actually make your monthly payments, that kind of thing. If we think of a country club, okay, so like a membership in some sort of club, but country club's a good example. There's probably a large buy-in. That's one thing. But I don't know, maybe there are other things that you would need to qualify for. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Now, we do have to recall that in the real world today, right, the non-NFT world, that there are non-discrimination laws. So you can't block certain people based on what if they're a protected class or if they're have different characteristics, right? So if that's what it is in the real world right now, the NFT world would have to still comply with those non-discrimination laws. So you couldn't certainly bar people from buying your NFT based on that kind of stuff. And I think another example I can think of, if you want to get into a mastermind or a high-end business coaching group, it's not strictly about the money. I mean, it may cost, let's say, $10,000 to get into that kind of group, but maybe there are other qualifying factors, like maybe you need to own a business. Maybe that business has to have 5 brick and mortar locations, not just one. Maybe you need an active buyers list of 10,000 people who have purchased something from you in the last 2 years. Right? There are many, many different things that could need to be there to qualify. So I say all of that kind of stuff because there are similarities in the world of NFTs and non-NFTs as far as membership goes or kind of the experience goes. But I don't know. I think, I'm trying to think. There's an example in a neighborhood that I have lived in where there was it wasn't really a country club, but it was a private club where families could purchase access to a pool and a basketball court and tennis courts and a number of other things for like $8,000 a year. And people could sell those. So in that case, it was an asset. So they didn't have the people who purchased them from someone who already owned one. It didn't have to go back to the club and then back down. It was literally you could go from person to person who lived in the neighborhood. It was just you had to prove that you lived in the neighborhood. Like that was just it, and you qualified. So in that case, again, very similar to what an NFT situation would be, where you put it up on a market for sale and someone can buy it. There's really no block. In fact, anybody in the world could potentially buy that NFT. Now there is a scenario here, and we'll call it the worst case scenario, where you might worry, okay, if it's just about the person who shows up to your show who got the VIP NFT and they're wearing the wrong clothing and they're bringing the party down, or they don't know how to dance and it's a dance party and they look like a fool, that's one thing. But the worst case scenario would be a stalker. Okay, what if a stalker buys an NFT and shows up to the show and might have access to the artist whom they're stalking? A great worry, okay, for an artist. Now, I'd say that I guess there's nothing right now that would stop a stalker from buying a VIP ticket. Okay, so if Ticketmaster sells a ticket, as long as the credit card goes through, they're going to take the money. Okay, so there's no way for their systems automatically to pull data from every city, every county, state, and federal criminal database and scan for standing restraining orders before they sell that ticket. It's just they just can't do it. Now, theoretically, I think it's actually possible that could be programmed into their system, but it's like the biggest, it's the biggest if that you've ever imagined. Okay, if all of the databases across the nation, I'm talking about the United States here, were designed exactly the same, or at least their APIs were designed exactly the same. Now, for you non-programming people out there, an API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's basically to make it's like here are the ways that you can ask for data, and you basically program your side of Ticketmaster over here to be able to talk to a database, and then this API basically is just pulling data. And okay, it's not really important to know, but that's one way that it wouldn't have to change the databases, but they would have to program an API. And all of those would have to be standardized. You'd have to have the same API across the entire nation for Ticketmaster to be able to do this kind of thing. Now, that could happen when all law enforcement in the United States migrate to blockchain technology, because at that point, a lot of things have to be rewritten. And so why not start to standardize? Because it is a giant problem that we have in the United States on so many levels, not just law enforcement. Now, I think that's going to be a long time before they migrate to blockchain technologies, mainly because of all the sunk costs that they've spent over the years on all of the computer systems and enterprise software and all of that they've spent money on. I don't think they could they'd have to save up for a long time, and there'd have to be a lot of bills passed in any of those municipalities or government entities to be able to pay for that giant shift. Okay, look, we have ancient's not the right word. Okay, if you're in Europe, you're in China, fine. Ancient infrastructure, yes, but in the United States, we have infrastructure like our sewer systems and our electrical grid and all that kind of stuff over 100 years old, something like that, or older, depending on the system. Older bridges, things like that. If we don't update all of that on a regular basis, it's all, believe it or not, crumbling. Stuff that's a lot newer, like software databases. You think they're going to make a shift that fast if they couldn't actually upkeep a sewer system appropriately? I don't know. So this isn't a topic about all of the problems and how we're governed in the United States, but you can see that I think people who fear that they're going to miss the boat when it comes to jumping into blockchain technology don't really see that it is so new. It's just like the internet back in the day when it first started. There was a good 8 years where no one was using the damn thing, where it was being developed and evolved and everything before Netscape Navigator came in 1993 or 94. That gave the graphical user interface, where then more people started to do a little bit more, but it still took years. Okay, so now I do think that there are countries out there that will make the shift a lot faster, and those countries will get ahead in many ways, and that might put pressure on behemoth countries like the United States to finally make some serious change in our insurance and medical and law enforcement and all of these other what we call I guess soft infrastructure. A country like Singapore, okay, they only have 4 million people. It's an island nation. The island is the size of Manhattan or something close to that. It doesn't have the thousands of municipalities that we have in the U.S., right? They have one internal law enforcement or police. They have one military, and they have one equivalent to the United States CIA. Kind of outward facing, to looking at other nations, kind of law enforcement or intelligence gathering system. So that's it. It's 3, much easier, right, to make a shift there. And the country has been extremely stable since it became its own country in the early 60s, and they've had the same ruling party. There are a few, actually more than we have in the United States, right? We're kind of a 2-party system here as far as political parties. They have more there, but there's been one party that has had the vast majority of control the entire time that the country has been in existence. So that, along with the fact that the prime minister has massive central authority and can make sweeping policy changes without needing too much consensus, means they can make giant mandates and the whole country has to follow along. And some people say that's authoritative and it's not a very free society or whatever. I've actually lived there for a couple of years, and I thought it was amazing. It was one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived. And yeah, it's true. I couldn't buy gum there, but the sidewalks didn't have any gum on them. They were the cleanest I've ever seen, and it's a beautiful planned country as far as kind of the buildings and the nature and all of that. Anyway, I kind of digress here, but I think the main point here is that Singapore has gone from kind of a backwater, Commonwealth-controlled, British-controlled little entity into a powerhouse of technology and commerce. And they have some of the most cutting-edge infrastructure in the world, and they are constantly updating their stuff. So I just want to say all of that, there are plenty of countries out there that do some things way better than the United States, and I think they will end up adopting blockchain. A lot of the blockchain promises that we're not going to see very much here other than just commerce in the United States. And what I've been talking about a lot, giving some benefits to artists. Now let's go back to the stalker scenario. I think the best security that you could see at a concert right now would be to have a list of names, okay, and maybe some related info, and you would check that against an ID that would be, a red flag list. Okay, you'd be checking against the list, and does this person's name show up on our list of known stalkers that have restraining orders, and all of that, to make sure that if they were going to get into an area where they would have access to the star or band members or something, that they would be barred from entry because of that. Now, I would say that the blockchain would help us automate something like that, because you could scan the NFT, which would be your ticket. But there's a lot of other information that comes along with that NFT. History on the blockchain for one, but also a lot of metadata that's associated with the NFT. And you could verify that maybe there's a wallet address, right? So NFTs are held in a digital wallet, and a wallet address is tied to an individual, okay? So they could automatically scan it in, and if the wallet ID matched the identity of a person that was known to be a stalker or something like that, they could bar them entry. So it would be a little bit more automated than having like a printed list or something like that and checking actual physical IDs. Of course, you might think that the obsessed fan could just create a new wallet, right? Just like in the physical world, I can have 5 different wallets and just change out my information and put it inside this physical wallet. The same thing goes for a digital wallet. I could have 20 of them, and maybe they only know me as one of those digital IDs, and I just stop using that one and I create a new wallet ID. And yes, that's true. You could get around their automatic check. So I don't think I'm going to solve this problem today, right? I just wanted to throw these scenarios out there to show you that a lot of people are asking questions. In a way, about NFTs that are very skeptical, and that's good. I think it is good to go into something knowing all of the angles and what's currently possible, and not get yourself in trouble. But sometimes when people say they have the best intentions, they just want to protect us. You gotta figure out if that's really true or not. Okay, there are a lot of people who might have entrenched interests, or they just don't like change and they're conservative, or they just like to argue and be right and win arguments. Right? They're just born debaters, and they're going to play the devil's advocate, and they will have read an article somewhere, and that's the conversation that comes up. And then some of us have those friends or family members that just always shoot down everything that we want to do because it's different and they're risk averse, or they've got some psychological things going on where they just don't want anybody else to win. I don't know, okay, but that's why I'm going to be trying to answer a lot of these questions. Really say, hey, no, let's really look at what truly exists out there, what NFTs might be able to do, what they currently can do, and so that we're making decisions from a place of power, and not from a place of weakness. And I also don't want you to miss out just because you hear somebody kind of poo-poo an idea, and it freaks you out and scares you away from something that might give you an extra avenue for revenue for what it is that you're doing as an artist. So that's what I've got for today. I'll be doing more of these questions here in the future, and I am excited to have people giving me feedback and wanting to know more about stuff. in this beautiful land of NFT, blockchain, smart contracts, online marketing, you name it, for artists. I really want to empower you guys and have a phenomenal future.